In any life, we have highs and lows, light and dark, wins and losses. What happens when we encounter that moment in time when what happens next could change everything? Join us as we step into another person's inspirational moment and see how we can connect their experience to ours. This is Greg Stevens, and you're listening to A Shot of Inspiration.
Welcome back. As a reminder, this is part 2 of this interview. If you missed the beginning of this story, just go back and listen to our last episode. Let's get back into it.
Still my pizza ordering name. It's so easy to say, Sam, then Enidio, and spell it 7 times, so I use it every once in a while, but it's my choice when I use it now, which is a big difference versus being given that as the choice.
Being told who you are. Yeah. So where did you go to college?
University of Texas.
Okay, University of Longhorn. And what did you study there? And how did you get in from there into the airline aviation industry?
Okay, so I'll start with the aviation part because it connects to the story about leaving. When I had that experience of being on that Pan Am Airlines and being doted over and for the first time really experiencing joy from strangers and love from strangers, it happened to be on an airplane. And I think that I started wiring love with aviation in that moment. And I'll never forget, Greg, this is one of those, there's been 2 times in my life when I knew exactly what I was supposed to do because it was, I wasn't even talking to myself. Someone was talking to me that this is the path forward. And so I kept my little Pan Am wings, and sure enough, the moment that I graduated, aviation was the first job that I ever had, Texas International Airlines. That's the one that got me to Dallas and reconnected with my foster parents, if you will. And so I was based out of Dallas. And from there, I was with TI. I went into the training department, and I was in charge of technical training, flight attendants, customer service, those kinds of folks. And the president of the airline used to come in every year. Every month, because we were in a hiring spree then, to say hello to the new hires. And so, of course, since I was, the instructor, we would always bump into each other very frequently for a period of about a year when TI was on a meteor ride to expansion. And that same gentleman, about 2 years into my career with TI, called me up and he says, "I'm starting an airline called People Express, and I want you to be a part of that." So I had just gotten married, one of those flight attendants that came in through my classes, and had just purchased a home in Houston. And within a week of my marriage and purchasing a home, I told Mary, I'm leaving for Newark because I'm going to start an airline. So we just didn't even finish hanging the curtains before all of that happened. So I left again, and I guess because of my history with leaving places, for me was just a natural thing to do, but I didn't recognize how difficult it was for Mary and our relationship initially to experience that early on. But it turned out to be, my greatest contribution to myself. So that's the aviation part. It's the connection between love and where loved actually was shown to me in its fullness, outside of just family. And being in Austin, UT is like the place to go. And so I was given an opportunity to go there, and I studied psychology, clinical, with a specialty in cross-cultural psychology, because of the experience. And so I got my undergrad from UT and my graduate degree from the University of Santa Monica in spiritual psychology much years later, but that was my background.
Yeah. So are you glad you followed up with the program in spiritual psychology? What was that like?
That was another surprise. I was holding a lot in, and I wasn't really sure that I had processed any of it. And not only was I holding the experience that I just described to you, but I also had my 12-year-old died in the context of that period of life. And so I was holding that in. The spiritual psychology, what was that like? So it gave me the tools to be able to connect my spirituality and bring it to life. And so it was not just I'm spiritual on Sundays or whenever. I'm bringing it, give me the tools to bring spirituality every moment, every day of my life, and connect it with business, with relationships and all that. And the other thing that it gave me was the gift of being able to unload some of those experiences and emotions that I had stuffed inside in a way that was so loving, so powerful, so respectful. So the spiritual psychology process, for 2 years, you become the client and other people kind of work on you and you work on other people. And so I play within the play. I got rid of some pain, and I also was able to, once I unloaded that, fill up with the benefits of feeling the amazing discovery of spirit and soul in everyday life. And so I started just peeling another layer of seeing not only things from black and white to color. Now it's like technicolor when you begin to integrate those aspects of you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go back a bit then. You have two daughters, Nicolette and Missy.
Yep.
And you said, share with people that dark side that you went through, that dark place. I know that if you wouldn't mind sharing, because I know this is very difficult, but I also know that you have worked through things, and it's always going to be a piece of you, but it's a tender piece. And I know that, and also what you've done with that, you and Mary, what you've done with that. I'd like for people here to hear about the Missy project as well. So walk us through what happened when you lost Missy.
So what happened? We dropped her off in summer camp. It was the 4th of July in Burnett, Texas, Camp Buckner. And Nikki had invited a friend, and Mary and I, all four of us, after we dropped Missy off, we went to South Padre. And we were expected to be there while Missy was at camp, and then, reunite. While we were in South Padre, I get a call from the camp that Missy had died. So I don't know what to tell you. The things that go through your mind at that moment it's just like you've been shelled from some kind of missile that has come in and has just put you numb or in a coma. And when I remember leaving that condo, we left everything behind, got in the car, and we had a 6-hour drive back to Austin with that awareness that was just so numbing and so painful. And so she passed. And there were moments in which, even though by that point I had accomplished so much, I didn't know what to do. And when I think about being in that moment of just not knowing, literally not having a sense of what to do, that was the first time that I've experienced surrender. I totally surrendered. And I gave it up. And I said, I have no clue what to do, what to think, how to move from here. Mary was also kind of like in that space. And in that moment of surrender, I found that things were a little lighter, that I was able to get out of bed, that I was able to speak with friends who were calling and that. And so I begun to feel a partnership with God in that moment, that it was walking next to us. And with that confidence, we were able to crawl out, because the first thing that we both felt was, I don't want to live anymore. I want to dig a hole. I want to stay there, because it's so easy to just not face reality. And we then, we did that for a few days and even weeks until we started thinking about, what about Nicolette? And what's our responsibility to her? And what's our responsibility to each other and to the world, given that we have been selected to have this experience? And so we started crawling out.
Yeah. Well, first, what did she pass from? Because that's another piece that you reached out and did something with that to make meaning out of it, from what I see, because you took something that was so difficult and you've actually helped so many people because of it. So share with the audience what she passed from and what you did with that. And then I'd also I've got another question just about you and Mary making it after all this time as well. But let's talk about
that's another podcast, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. But let's talk about how Missy did pass in that moment.
Yeah, so we didn't know that she had brain aneurysm, and she had some telltale signs. She was complaining of headaches. She was an athlete. She was a basketball player, star basketball player, and she started complaining of headaches. And ironically, right before the camp, we had to take her into a physical. It was a camp requirement. And Mary took her in and shared with her, she's been complaining of headaches and check it out. And the doctor said, well, I think it's hormones. She's, 12 years old. She may be going through that. It could be allergies, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that this was the manner in which it revealed itself. And so when she went to camp, apparently, because we're really good friends with her little bestie that she was at camp with and saw everything and experienced everything. And so she's kind of like our surrogate Missy. Apparently they were playing boys and girls, boys against girls, and the one that could shout the loudest and kind of outscream the other group was the winner. And so the girls did their part, the boys did their part. And apparently one of those screams, she put so much energy behind it that the aneurysm popped.
Wow.
And within a matter of minutes, she was gone. So I didn't even know how to spell the word aneurysm. I didn't even know that she had it. And what happened after that is 100% my wife. Okay. I want to give her the credit, because we didn't know much about it. We thought, well, there's got to be others that are feeling the same way. How do you spell it? Where do you find it's just not a sexy disease, even though it kills more people than a lot of other major diseases combined. It's just not talked about. And so Mary started doing her homework, and she contacted the Cleveland Clinic. And how do you prevent this from happening? Because the statistics are horrific. It's called a brain attack. So it's just as prevalent as heart attacks. It's just that oftentimes when people die from an aneurysm, they give the cause of death as a heart attack or a stroke or something like that, not necessarily pinpointed to that event. And so what Mary and I decided to do was to begin to fund research to understand it a little bit better. And then we created the Missy Project. And the Missy Project now screens people who have some symptoms, but cannot afford the cost of an MRI, because with right now, unless they find the aneurysm, you won't get that MRI paid for unless you have an aneurysm and they have to screen it. You get it paid, but just as an exploration point to do the screening to rule it in or out, it's non-paid. And so it's very expensive. So we raise funds to provide free screenings for people, not just in Texas, but now we have people come from all over the nation coming into St. David's Hospital and getting screened.
That's awesome. And you've saved many lives because of it, because people have been able to find that. So one of the things we're definitely going to do is put an area where people can go and donate for the Missy Project, folks. If this has been something that there's nothing like losing a child, but when you lose a child and you come back and you help others, I think that's it's so inspiring, that in and of itself. But one of the things I also noticed, I think I read a statistic that when a couple loses a child, I think 7 or 8% make it. Most people divorce after that. I remember you telling me one time, tell us how you and Mary finally just said, tell us how you're still together after that.
Yeah, and it's still a work in project, in
Yeah,
process, I must say. It's an
absolutely. It's a
ongoing,
life.
so
It's a
yeah.
life, you know?
I feel like an experience like that, and some other folks may have had a deep experience like that, but it may not have been losing a child. But when you have a deep experience like that, it becomes a revelator. It reveals to you many things. And one of the things that revealed to us was that if we're going to have a life for the rest of this moment, it has to be more intentional. And so we had a conversation based on the stats that you suggested. This is a great out. This, if we ever wanted to have, a separateness as a result of either growing apart or because of this event, it's socially acceptable for us to do it right now. No one's going to question it. In fact, almost everybody expected it. And so I remember us having a conversation about, do you want to be in this relationship now that we have that wisdom of understanding how fragile life is? Do we want to have this relationship? So obviously we decided that yes, it's been, a roller coaster ride for a lot of different reasons, but the intentionality of life becomes much bigger than just living life. And so that was one of the gifts, if you will, of her passing, that she reminded us. I'm almost living right now, and it's not just the Missy story. It's about a lot of the things that you and I talk about with the other birds. It's become more like I'm living like I'm dying every day, and I just told our friend Matt that, and I said, Matt, I feel like I'm dying every day. I feel like I'm dying, and that urgency makes me live life much more consciously and freer. It makes me say, since I'm gonna die,
Right.
I might as well show you a little bit more of who I am. And here we go. So the dance continues in a very authentic way.
Yeah. Gives you a little more courage to step out into that unknown.
Yeah, because it's going to come to the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, why would we be watching TV if we got a round trip ticket?
Very true. Now, that's another thing. I loved it. A couple weeks ago, I had never met Nicolette, and then I got to meet Nicolette, and I got to meet your grandkids. And
Mhm.
there's the beautiful continuing side of life. We go through those dark places, but there's also those beautiful exposures that happen as we get through that. I think that even makes those that piece, I saw you when you were with your grandkids. I saw a light I've never seen in you. So that was really nice to see that.
Joy can push your lips to kind of part. And that relationship is interesting because I'm more in the witness stage versus the doing stage with them. So I just sit back and watch and learn and kind of like, oh my gosh, they're still excited about roly polies, and how exciting is that they versus don't touch that because it's a bug.
It's nasty.
I know. So it's just such a great, once again, revelations that show up as a result of not only life stages, but also the moments that you catch yourself saying, this is temporary,
Yeah.
and have fun with it.
Yeah.
Don't make it such a hardship.
Well, and I want to shift a little gear here. I want to say all of those are beautiful experiences and deeply touching. All of that has created you to be the instructor you are to so many people and helping people in the conversation about expanding their mind around diversity, equity, inclusion, not just that, but spirituality, all the things that you talk about. Let's talk about, what do you love about what you do, and what would you like to have people hear and understand, if you've just got one thing to tell them today to possibly inspire them to open their mind in a different way, to maybe take on something that they haven't before?
You know, I believe that each person was kind of baked with certain God ingredients in them. And that before we even come out of the womb, there's these ingredients that God has put you in your recipe of life that is specifically designed for you. And one thing I encourage people when they are looking at diversity from a fear standpoint, or perhaps discomfort because they're different, or they may, you know, have an accent that you've never heard before, or a weird name, or whatever the case, or however that difference shows up, is to really understand that the interdependency that we have with one another is another way that those ingredients get revealed to you because of discomfort, because of fear, because of everything. You stumble across instances of you that may not ever have really been stimulated. And so for me, diversity gives us that discovery. And I encourage people to look at others as those gifts, the relational gifts that can reveal certain aspects of you that you may not even know that it was there. And so that interdependency for me is what not only what has gotten me through, but what has also given me the insight to recognize how much people appreciate feeling accepted. You know, recently Value Graph came out with, you know, 500,000 respondents globally. They asked people around the world, what do you value the most? And belonging and community were the top five, on the top five. And so it's not just a word that we created in the USA, diversity, equity, inclusion.
Yeah.
It's really a hard wiring. And it may be one of those ingredients that we all got baked with that says belonging and feeling respected and including is your birthright.
Yeah.
And so I try to remind people that.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I love it. You talk about it like that. We come with our own stuff. Emily Gregory, who's going to be on in a couple of weeks, she said a friend of ours, Michael Poor, told her that when you have kids, you understand they come with their own luggage. It's already packed. You just help them rearrange it from time to time. And
Yes.
that's what I think what you're doing in the conversation, you're helping people rearrange some of the baggage they bring with them
Yeah.
and look at things
Yes.
differently. And, you know, this goes better over here. And this
Yes.
kind of gets in the way
Yes.
of you accessing what you need to engage with each other. I thought that was a
Yeah.
really good analogy. I was like, that's really good.
Yeah. And to take it a little bit further, what I encourage also is for, you know, so let's say, let's assume you have a backpack with you, right? And you've got your stuff packed in there. And in conversations with other people, someone will go, did you know you had a zipper on this part? Oh no, I didn't know there was a zipper there. And so let's open it, you know. So that's the revelation that interdependency has done for me, is that they have identified zippers, buttons, you know, kind of things within that luggage that I've been carrying around that I didn't even know existed. And it was like, oh my goodness, you just made my life richer as a result of that zipper, because I didn't know that it was there.
Yeah, exactly. That's so good. That's so good. So,
But it puts us all on a level playing field, by the way. The conversation of inclusion puts us all in a level playing field, because it's hard to find a person who doesn't want to be included or feel accepted or appreciated for their uniqueness.
yeah.
And so when I start there, before we talk about race and sexual orientation or anything like that, it puts us all on the same playing field.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I love everything. I know I'm going to have you on several times, and we're probably going to have an episode with all the birds. Folks, we have a group of 4 guys that we went camping, and we've got this whole thing. So we're called the Birds, and we kind of reach out to help each other. And you'll get to meet everyone at some point, and we'll have a group conversation, maybe even a live one with people calling in and engaging with us. It'd be a lot of
I would
fun.
love that.
But as we finish up today, any final thoughts or any inspirational stories or any idea that you would like to leave the audience with today to have them go out and see the world maybe through different eyes, maybe take up something that they were fearful to take on and engage with? Any deep words of advice for the people in our audience today?
I think that for me, and I believe that others may find that what I was most afraid of early on was embracing my uniqueness. And I was never given affirmation for those differences as a kid in Cuba. In fact, I was told, that I was just the opposite, that I was not worthy and all that. So I didn't see my difference as a gift. And so what I would encourage others is to really embrace the uniqueness, because that is your price of admission to full life. It's not conformity, which is what I have been, as an immigrant, you're always told, don't rock the boat, just, do as the Romans. It's always conform. And so I've always aimed towards that. And I'm not minimizing the importance of conformity, but I also got lost in not fully expressing my uniqueness. Give you a quick example. So I had hair at some point in my life. I was balding, and I was always afraid of losing my hair because I would look different, and a guy without hair, and it reminded me of my dad. And it was just all, that was the baggage that, I was walking around with. And this guy, in one of the sessions, after the session, goes, you are terrific, but your hair is distracting. And I thought, thank you for the feedback. And at first I was like, oh, I knew it. See, I told you my uniqueness is not as good as I thought. So I was about to turn 50. And on my 50th, I went into a barbershop and I said, take it all off. And I knew that there was no turning back. Once that, number one shaver came out, I was not going to grow hair again. So it was, and I didn't know what was underneath. I mean, I had a sense, but I didn't know whether there was a scar or whatever that was going to be horrific. And that was the first time that I embraced my uniqueness. And it was such a great decision, because I gained so much confidence and I gained so much freedom that from now on, I'm like, oh, heck yeah. So I encourage you to be yourself because everyone else is taken. But at the same time, you want to be yourself because that is full living in my book. And I'm not there yet. I started with my hair, and I'm starting with those conversations that you and I have about understanding who we truly really are. But it's a I'm going to die still searching. I'll tell you that much.
That's awesome. And I think that's what we need to be doing, because it puts us on the edge and stepping out into that unknown. And that's where life is lived. I don't think at the end of it, we're going to say, I wish I would have played it a lot safer. I just don't. I think we're going to be saying, I wish I would have stepped out in that unknown a little more. That's just my thought around it.
Yeah.
Enidio, thank you so much for being on today, and we will do this again. I appreciate you opening up about your personal stories and giving people a glimpse into who you are, because, folks, this is one of the most amazing people I know, and thank you for being on the show. And folks, we'll see you again on another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, Greg.
Thanks for listening to this episode of A Shot of Inspiration. If you like this or any of our other episodes, make sure you rate it and share it with a friend. This is Greg Stevens, and we look forward to being with you next time. Until then, be bold, be courageous, and respectfully speak your truth.